Welcome, everyone, to Radio Dead Air Tech Q&A. You've got questions. We've got guesses. I'm Nash. Been doing Radio Dead Air for ages and ages. But in addition to that, I'm also an IT professional with me, as always. My producer, Mike Gearman, who is also trained in IT stuff. If you have tech questions for Mike and myself, you can send those to requests at radiodeadair.com. We'll try to help you with those tonight. I have had more adventures this week. Some of you may have noticed with our cable company. I got fed up with it and I tried a tactic, which I don't recommend if you don't know what you're doing. There is very little you can do if you're having noise and interference along your cable internet line. There's really very little you can do. You can check the stuff in your place going to the line outside. But that's pretty much about it. However, you can try a little trick with a signal attenuator, which your cable modem, the way it works is it broadcasts at a certain level, a certain decibel level or decibel millivolt, whatever, a signal level.
A signal level, which is measured in decibels.
Right. And the system talks back in that same level. You can change the level that the system talks to you in by tricking your modem into yelling. And that's what what you do with an attenuator is you clamp down on the incoming signal. And the modem thinks, wait, I can't hear anything. Can you hear me? And it's a trick.
I'm reminded of that old Saturday Night Live bit, where we're now going to repeat the headlines of the evening.
Garrett Morrison
for the hard of hearing.
Yeah, for the hard of hearing. Yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah, you're essentially tricking your cable modem into being louder, which it's not supposed to do, but it does work. So far today, fingers crossed, it continues. It has overcome any instances of packet loss or other. We've had perfect streaming today, which is the first in a while. We'll see if that holds up. But maybe I have found a workaround for the time being because I just don't feel like trying to go through their tech support again. I really don't. If this just keeps working, fine. I'll mess with it later. I don't care. That's fine. Very frustrating. How are you doing, Mike?
Not bad this week, It's a week. I had a couple doctor's appointments, and next week is gonna probably be tedious, but the week after should be okay.
I lost my wallet this week, but
yeah, you mentioned that.
But some interesting stuff that is tech related, actually. Because I had connected my bank account with my Google wallet, the wallet for my phone. When they shut off my old card in process of sending me a new one, I still haven't gotten it yet. I'm probably not going to get it until next week, which means, oh no, what am I going to do? I don't have money. But what they did was they went ahead and put the new number digitally into my Google wallet.
So you can still order food online and things like that.
I can order food online. Not only that, this is RFID. So I can go into a store, and if they have an RFID reader, like Target does or the gas station does, a couple of places, I can just buy things with my phone. And also, this works at an ATM, which still boggles my mind.
Yeah, it does. Me too.
But yeah, I can take this.
I mean, I don't connect my phone because sometimes I leave my phone at work or something like that. I always have my credit card, but yeah. And the reason I don't lose my wallet is because it's never in my back pocket or anything. I don't have to worry about setting it down. It always goes into the pouch on my side because I have a bad back and I don't put things in my pockets anymore.
Well, it's just, it was neat to me that even losing my card, in the olden days, if you lost your card, you were screwed. You had the only way you were getting money is you had to go to the bank and provide your ID of some, and if you lost your wallet, that's trouble too. But you would have to go to the bank and say, here's my ID. Can I have money out of my account? And you have to physically get money to go buy stuff. If they have True Metis, have you been to Walmart? Walmart does not have RFID.
I would suspect it depends on the. I haven't been inside a Walmart in about a decade.
Walmart does not have RFID because Walmart insists on using their own app.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. They have their own app because if they have their own app, like so many fast food places have their own app, they can get more personal data from you that they can then sell to other people and put more money in the Waltons' pockets so they can, I don't know, sit there and be evil.
So instead of just scanning your RFID card or whatever, instead what you have to do is you have to install their app, and then you have to connect your credit card to it. I thought it would work with my bank account because it worked with my bank account online, but it didn't work when we actually got to the store. But anyway, you connect your credit card to it or your debit card or whatever. Then you wait. You have to ring up all your stuff, and they give you a QR code to scan, and you pay that in the app. It's so stupid. And the byproduct is they get to keep using all of this ancient ass technology and never having to upgrade their checkouts. So
yeah,
great. So, but anyway,
yeah, I haven't been inside a Walmart in 10 years, and I'm hoping to stretch to 20. So,
well, good luck. I wish you all the best. It's.
Oh, I drive past one all the time because the grocery store I go to is past the Walmart.
Well,
there's a Sam's Club, and the grocery store I go to is between the two.
It's quite literally our only most affordable option here. So, well, anyway, let's start with the news for this week before we get to your questions. This is not really a story, but it is a video I recommend you watching. We've been talking a little bit about the Intel fiasco not long ago, where they.
I thought that was a Fiat model, not a computer chip.
Intel has been doing a very, very stupid thing to compete with AMD because they've not been having very good luck competing with AMD. Intel, instead of having very specific power values and specifications for how much electricity you're supposed to run through the processor in a default situation, out of the box, no overclocking, no fucking around, just you use the CPU as spec. Intel has no spec for that, leaving it up to motherboard.
Just whatever the motherboard manufacturer, they got some profiles, but their profile naming scheme is weird.
Yeah. And as a result, what has happened is the motherboard, Hardware in a Box, wonderful channel. Happily recommend you subscribe. They cover all sorts of tech. They're at Computex right now, and they're talking with motherboard manufacturers off the record. And off the record, everybody's saying, Intel's fucking us. We don't know what to do. They won't give us specifications. They won't nail it down for us. They're trying to have their cake and eat it too. Because they have, let's see, the default specification, or is it the performance specification, or is the performance spec the default spec, or it?
Yeah, that's why I say it's a weird naming scheme, because unless you actually look at them in depth, or at least a little bit in depth, you don't know which one is the right one to use.
Yeah. Oh well, Digress. No, they're not sharing specs, but they. Right now, their CPUs, if they don't jam a lightning bolt up their asses, their CPUs lag considerably behind AMD's flat comparable levels. It's not a problem when you get down to lower levels, although they're still not quite as good. But when we're talking at the peak, the tip top, the 13900K, 14900K, those can't keep up with, say, the 7800X3D. Which is a much cheaper processor.
Unless you crank the voltage on it.
And they're not really being specific on what's supposed to be allowed voltage and what you shouldn't do with it. Conversely, AMD and NVIDIA have both been very specific about their specifications. Funny that. And when we had that problem a while back where the motherboards were actually burning the CPUs, it wasn't on AMD. It was because the motherboard manufacturers were not following the specification. And AMD came down on them over that. Even though AMD said, no, we'll honor the warranties on this, but it's their
you guys
fault.
Screwed up.
Yeah. So they
weren't saying that, they weren't telling the users they screwed. You didn't screw up other than buying from this guy. Don't buy from Gary down by the riverbank.
Well, no, it was Asus, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, Asus.
I couldn't remember, so I just went with Gary.
But yeah, it's that. So MSI, Gigabyte, all the ASRock, Asus, all the behind the scenes, they're telling the folks at Hardware Unboxed, Intel's screwing around. We don't know what to do. We're kind of at a loss.
And the board partners are starting to get a little pissed.
Because, they don't want to take responsibility for this. They don't want to take responsibility for damaged CPUs when this is on Intel. And Intel simply, in order to avoid, if Intel gave a proper out-of-the-box specification for these CPUs, they would have to downclock them and lower the voltage. And then they would not perform anywhere near what Intel promised they would.
And, putting them higher on the chart than they really deserve to be.
So they're trying to avoid doing that because they don't want to have customers say, hey, wait, you promised us I'd get this speed out of this super expensive CPU and I can't. I want my money back. So it's something to consider right now, just the position Intel is in. Intel is also soon to be releasing Arrow Lake. Is it Meteor Lake or Arrow Lake? Arrow Lake. Arrow Lake is the desktop one. It's their next generation architecture. Interesting thing about that they have mentioned that came out of Computex this week. They're ending hyperthreading. They're no longer going to be using hyperthreading on their CPUs. They're saying that the IPC gains and the efficiency cores will compensate.
Will make up for it.
More than make up for it, in fact. So it won't just be as fast, they will be faster. And in some ways, I can kind of appreciate that because all of the major exploits we've had, what was the Ghost one? What did they call it? Spectre. And a couple of the other.
There was Ghost Hammer. I don't know if that did hyperthreading. Was hyperthreading. There were so many, I've lost track of which one was which.
A bunch of these major exploits were particularly because on Intel, they call it hyperthreading. On AMD, they call it SMT. But what it is it's one core handling two threads at the same time. And because of the hyperthreading, they were able to, because sometimes the hyperthreading has to guess in order to handle those threads properly. People were able to exploit the guessing. At least someone can correct me if I've got that wrong.
No, that was pretty much it.
Yeah, and those exploits were all based. So by dropping hyperthreading but maintaining and improving their speed, that's a major security flaw they're going to be getting rid of. And I don't know, that's something, while it might not appeal too much to gamers, I'm pretty sure that corporate clients are going to like, and government clients are going to like hearing, look, we're going to have much less exploits because we've ditched this. No more hyperthreading. We're just going to go straight.
Well, the corporate clients will be happy, but the government clients will also be really happy about it.
They will be. Yeah. So, okay. Other news. Say, is someone backtracking just a wee bit? After literally everyone on Earth who knows what a computer is heard about Microsoft's recall, which, in case you were not familiar, what this is going to be is a feature of their Copilot Plus computers. Not just Copilot Plus.
Which required a special chip on your computer, so it wasn't going to happen for everyone.
It would be using the NPU, or Neural Processing Unit, or LI, to take snapshots of literally everything you did on your computer.
Now, it had the option where you could say, hey, don't include my bank in this, but you had to put in, it's basically address specific. You'd have to say,
you would have to go in.
Don't put that in.
You would have to go in and say, don't do this and this and this and this and this. And pretty much everyone went, that's a terrible fucking idea. And Microsoft went, no, it's not.
And then security researchers said, it's a terrible idea. Microsoft, no, it's not. Here's why it's a terrible idea. The first security researcher I saw said, so I set up recall on several different accounts, and went to one account and was able to access the recall information from the other accounts. That's bad.
Yeah. So
then another security researcher said, I was able to access the recall information, which is supposed to be encrypted, with no accounts.
Yeah. So essentially,
without having an account on the machine, basically hacking in.
With very little effort, a bunch of security researchers went, this is shit, Microsoft. What do you do? I can get into all this stuff that I'm not supposed to. If you can get into an account on a different computer, that's huge. That is effectively, you have put everyone's computer on the internet. So
even though it's supposed to be local only. And of course, this doesn't even include that fact that it's taking up a significant amount of hard drive space on your computer.
Yeah. So,
and in a corporate or government environment, those are going to be bad. I mean, it was just a few years ago that Sony was hacked, and the way Sony got hacked is they got into one computer where they found an Excel file that had all the passwords.
Now, you would think
this is arguably worse.
So what they've done is, first of all, and this should have been the initial iteration, the fact that they had to come out, go, fine, you babies. First of all, they're finally going to make it opt-in. It was opt-out initially, but now they're going to be like, fine, you have to turn it on yourself, you babies. Jeez. All we were trying to do is make money. God.
The problem I have here is, even if it is opt-in, I still feel that there's the potential for malware.
Oh, yeah.
Where someone goes, just to turn it on and not notify you that it's been turned on, so that they can come back at a later date and just grab everything.
So now they're also saying, if you want to use it, you have to use Windows Hello, which is their biometric stuff. That's their face scanning and fingerprint sensor and the PIN. So each time you want recall to view your data, not to take the stuff's already on there, but if you want to view it, you have to get into it with Windows Hello. And they're also going to encrypt the searches. But it seems to me that if your computer's having to do all this extra shit in the background, it's going to make it slower. Just saying.
Because, by the way, the screenshots were basically every few seconds.
Right. But now it has to take a screenshot and encrypt it every few seconds.
Yes. Well, it was already supposed to be encrypting it, but
this is a whole bunch of crap. The fact that they were going forward with this without just the basic shit, the arrogance and the idiocy involved to just blunder ahead like this, it does not bode well. Like everybody keeps saying we're on the verge of the AI bubble popping. Nothing is going to make it. It's already starting with Google and forcing AI into their search, and it being like, how many rocks? How many rocks should you eat every day? One. You should eat one rock every day. And they got that info from The Onion, but they don't understand what The Onion is. And everyone hates it. And now if you force it on people's computers, everyone's going to hate it even more.
Yep.
Like you're going to...
Exactly. I saw multiple people this week say, if this was forced on my computer, that I had to have it and it had to be on, they were going to switch to Linux.
Well, it's not because you want to.
These were average users who are going like, I'm going to switch to another operating system. It doesn't do this to me.
I'm going to say a lot of those people won't do Linux. They will go to Apple, because Apple is a much more user-friendly experience than Linux is. Like, they'll lose a lot of gaming compatibility, but
I think the Linux people should take advantage of this and make a very, very, I know it's difficult for you guys to understand this in the Linux world, but you need to make a very, very user-friendly version that people can switch to.
Yes, it's the year of Linux on the desktop. Again. Like, I remember Linux has had several moments they could have capitalized on Microsoft's sheer freaking idiocy. Windows Vista, Windows 8, this they could have capitalized on this, and they never have. They never have understood. Well, it's great. We like Linux like it is. Yes, you don't. You're. It's not for you. It's for the people who aren't you. You idiots.
Yeah. Now, my real problem with the whole recall thing and the fact that the security wasn't baked in from day one is that Microsoft has had a number of high-profile hacks, especially on the Office 365 cloud product level, to the point where they said, your primary, to everyone working there, except possibly the janitors, your primary job is security first. If the feature you want to add is not secure, you don't get to add the feature until it's secure. Recall, that doesn't apply to you. Just go.
Well, speaking of more AI shenanigans, potentially, Adobe pissed off everybody.
Yes.
Everybody. And
unfortunately, so I follow some IP lawyers online. And so what this is Adobe's updated term of service. This actually updated in February, and people didn't notice until now.
Yeah.
And the IP lawyers are like, it's not actually as bad as you think it is, but that's because Adobe is really crap at wording things. And that's what this article is Adobe is like, yeah, we know you don't trust us. We're going to fix the wording.
Yeah, I mean, it says so much about again, this is about how people perceive AI, how the public and potential customers perceive AI, that even just being put near it, Adobe's customer base freaked the entire fuck out.
Yep.
What happened was the terms of service, vague and badly worded, seemed to indicate that Adobe was going to have access to all your project files. Adobe, the company. Not just in general, and what people immediately assumed was they were going to feed it to AI for machine learning. And then people were like, well, what about if this is NDA? And then Duncan Jones, who you may remember, he is David Bowie's son. He made Moon, which is a freaking amazing movie. You should watch it, even though, Kevin Spacey's voice doesn't matter. Great movie. He got on there as like, well, what the hell am I supposed to do? We're in the middle of making a movie right now. And it wasn't helped the fact that you couldn't cancel your Adobe anything. You couldn't cancel your account until you agreed to the new terms of service, which made people even more upset. And yeah, no one has any freaking trust in companies to behave properly while they're doing this.
Yeah. Now, Adobe came out and did say, hey, we are not doing this. The only thing we're training Firefly on is our Adobe stock and public domain content where copyright has expired. Now, okay, the problem with that second part is there's a lot of things corporations out there think, oh, there's no copyright on this or copyright has expired, and then they find out they're wrong.
Yeah, quite often, yes.
And whether or not they'll get sued over it depends on whose stuff they've taken.
Yeah, and Daryl points out they're also charging fees if you want to cancel rather than accept the new terms, which is...
So there is apparently a workaround on the fees.
Yes, this was hilarious. Yes, there's a workaround.
The workaround on the fees is you go in, you say you want to cancel, and their system will go, how about you downgrade instead?
Yeah, we'll give you a deal.
We'll give you a deal, and what you do is you pick the cheapest plan.
Right.
The $15 a month plan.
Right.
And then once they've signed you up to the $15 a month plan, you turn around and cancel again, because you can cancel any plan within 14 days.
Yep. Ha.
Now, they'll probably fix that hack.
Yeah, eventually.
Depending on how many people take advantage of it.
They're probably going to be surprised at how many people take advantage of it.
I will say that one of the other image editing, image production software companies out there has taken advantage of this.
Was this Avid?
Called Affinity.
Oh, Affinity. Oh, okay. Yeah, kind of
Affinity's taken advantage of this whole thing by saying, hey, all our software's half off.
I will say
it's a single time license. You don't got to pay a monthly fee. And they apparently sold a lot.
I will say, I still use Adobe stuff, but my Adobe stuff is not only is it old, it's cracked. It's from age. The reason it's cracked is simply to keep it offline. I paid them at one point. Then I simply stopped paying. I haven't updated since then. I'm using an old version. So, I don't feel like, I'm not getting the updates and everything, but I don't trust them anymore. And while I could learn something new, it would take time. I would have to change everything to a new workflow. It would be a pain in my butt. So I'm just going to use the old stuff for now until I'm forced off of it to try and learn. I am a very old dog, and your new tricks will cost me money and time. So they're going to start suing people who use older versions for piracy. Cool. Fuck them. I've got like a copy of CS6 somewhere that I actually have a key for. They want to come at me for that. They can fuck right off. All right. Yay. That's the news for this week. Now it's time to get your questions. If you have tech questions for Mike and myself, you can always send those along to request@radiodeadair.com. We have a couple right now.
Okay, before we get to the questions, there's some. I'd like to make a quick addition to what we're going to talk about.
What's that?
Folks, if you're out there and your router dies, we don't recommend plugging your computer directly into your modem.
Even though I will tell you, the modem people, they will, as part of their troubleshooting, they will want you to do that.
Yeah. The reason for this is your computer might not have a software firewall. And there are guys out there lurking and pinging on these things constantly. And I know someone this happened to very recently. So his router died. He plugged it straight into the modem and checked his computer a little while later to discover it was doing things on its own.
Yeah, don't run without any kind of firewall. It's a bad idea. It's a bad plan. All right, let's start with Diego tonight. This one might be more up your alley because this is more Microsoft accounts and stuff. That's something you deal with more than I do. Hi, Radio Dead errors. Interesting. I'm not sure if I've asked this question already, so I apologize. But if not, short version is I have two accounts on my PC. My main account that is password protected and a secondary account for my family to use that is not password protected. The problem I'm having is every time I turn the computer on after someone used the second account, it auto logs in to that account. Is there a way to turn auto login off? It's not critical, but it's very annoying.
Sort of. Yes and no. There's not really a way to turn it off, but there is a way to make it not log in.
Okay.
Sort of. So what you're going to do, follow this very carefully. Press the Windows key plus R to open the Run dialog. You're going to type NETPLWIZ. Hit enter. This will bring up a user accounts window. And what you do is you select the name of that other account, and then there's a checkbox at the top of that little panel that says users must enter a username and password to use this computer. Select that, and then click OK. Now, what this will do is it will pop up the standard Windows login screen. you say, wait, this account doesn't have a password, they would just leave that blank.
Yeah. If it doesn't have a password, just click OK and it'll log on in, even if it doesn't.
Yeah, you put in whatever the name of the account is and click OK. Yeah. And this will just make it go to that Windows default screen. Now, personally, I don't recommend having accounts without passwords.
Yeah.
It can be dangerous, but
especially if they have admin privileges, that's a bad problem.
Yeah, this sounds like a standard user account, but you know.
All right. So hopefully, Diego, that helps, because yeah, Mike deals with this in a corporate environment every day.
Well, not that one. I mean, we have something we have to run.
Oh, yeah,
not our main system, called STIGs, Security Technical Implementation Guidelines. Guidelines is a bit of a misnomer. Each STIG, there's STIGs for basically everything: operating systems, network appliances, certain software. Not every software has a STIG. The more popular and useful it is in an office environment, the more likely it does. And these STIGs are full of line items of things you do to make the system more secure. And the reason I say guidelines is a misnomer is because while you can technically not do a STIG line item, the amount of justification you have to do for why you did not do the STIG line item is often more than doing the STIG line item. Now, sometimes it's a case of you just mark it not applicable. Not applicable is fine. You still have to justify not applicable, but it's usually a lower bar.
All right. Next up, this is from Nathan. It says, "Hi, Nash and Mike. I've been following along the Intel stuff about the profiles and the BIOS and the power levels. I've seen the term silicon degradation used, but I'm not entirely sure about the mechanism behind it. What is it? How does it work? And is it something every computer has to worry about, or just Intel?"
Okay, so it is something every computer theoretically has to worry about.
Yeah.
But basically, Intel's chips have to worry about it because, as we mentioned earlier in the show, they're not providing the right sorts of specs for the board manufacturers. So they're basically over voltaging a lot of the chips, and that much power and heat through the silicon is causing it to break down a little bit sometimes.
See, what happens with these chips is, especially with overclocking, which has become a standard feature now that's sort of on by default. You can't just run unlimited power through a silicon chip with transistors. They are not.
I mean, realistically, you can't run unlimited power through anything.
Yeah. You can't just turn up the voltage to get more power and just, there you go. Because in doing so, what you are doing is, keep in mind, the silicon wafer is a bunch of transistors that are traced into it with I say trace, that's just a very broad term. The lithography embeds the transistors into the chip. And with too much electricity, beyond the proper specification for that chip, what will happen is eventually the pathways that the electricity has to go down will start to degrade. They will start to become unstable. And the only way to keep the chip functioning is you have to turn the power down below the operating specification of the chip. Essentially, some chips can keep working with silicon degradation, but they will never work at their out-of-the-box rated performance levels ever again. You have to compensate for them by turning things way down below what they were supposed to be. And does every chip have to worry about? It's not just an Intel thing. Every CPU has to worry about that, but usually it's only a function of overclocking.
Yeah. Now, let's say barring system malfunction.
Right. Yeah.
It is normally overclocking
because
induced.
Used to be with
overclocking or overheat. Because if your system is in an overheat position because cooling shut off and it's not warning you, this can also cause issues.
Used to be with overclocking. There was a hard limit on the power that was allowed to go through the CPU, and people would have to bypass those limits themselves to perform some of the overclocking. Some of the overclocking you didn't need more voltage, some of you did. Now that bypassing the limits the CPU has its own mechanisms to determine when it's allowed to, when it can do that safely. It gauges it by the cooling capacity it records in the system, and it uses that to estimate how high it can clock and how much extra electricity it can put through it. But those are still within a specification. There is an upper limit on those. They are not allowed to exceed. That was the problem a while back with the AMD CPUs and the AM5, and how those CPUs were getting burned out by the motherboards. That's because the motherboards had set part of the voltage too high, and that was outside of the specification. AMD didn't approve that. That's why it wasn't their fault. Once you have the reason why this is a problem with Intel is they don't have a specification, or they don't have a hard line. They sort of let motherboard manufacturers do their own thing.
Yeah, I'm sure they have a specification in-house. They're just not telling anyone.
And the motherboard manufacturers were allowing the CPUs, even based on things that Intel was allowing them to do and out of the box, to exceed voltages that they probably should. The result is a bunch of these really expensive chips, 13900Ks, 14900, even like some 13700Ks, very expensive CPUs were facing silicon degradation. That means they're never going to run as fast as they're rated for ever again if you want to keep them functioning. And even still, silicon degradation can stop if you stop using as much electricity through it, but it can also continue to go even if you turn down the voltage. Depends on how bad the damage is. Butterball saying, so like microscopic stress fractures that increase under higher load, kind of, except in this case is you have broken the intended load. It can no longer handle what it's allowed to, what it's spec. It's no longer handling the load it's spec to handle. It can't do it anymore. And from then on, the CPU is just, it's shot. Some of them can still work, but you have to fiddle with the system settings, and it's going to lose a lot of the performance. Some of these are probably never going to clock past 5 gigahertz ever again. If you're lucky. Like some of these were going like, they were pushing above like 6 gigahertz and stuff. Some of them are never going to be able to do that again, just because of the power damage to, you don't see this in a lot of other things. Like your phone is not going to see this, even though it's possible with your phone. If your phone overheats and there's no, the security mechanisms, that's why all chips these days have a mechanism in that says, if the heat gets too high, the phone goes, whoa, stop it. And it'll either down, not just the phone, your tablet, your car even, it will downclock the CPU or shut it off entirely to protect it from damage. If that doesn't work, then yes, any chip can suffer that, but that's only if the protection mechanisms malfunction. But it's not something you're normally going to see in any other venue than usually desktop CPUs these days. I don't think there's anything else that this would qualify, unless you have a really bad design of chips or some shit. So no, it's not something every computer has to worry about. This is the only reason this is happening right now is because Intel were desperate to regain the lead from AMD, and they did it in a very desperate fashion, and now they're having to pay for that. All righty, let's up. Hello, Nash. Hello, Mike. Hello, Floofs. Covering all the bases there. Here's one that had us tearing our hair out. Maybe you can help. We bought an open box PC from Best Buy a while back. It's an HP Omen 25L GT12-0050 with a Ryzen 7 3700 and an RX 5700. No, that's not bad. We've had it for a while, but when we rearranged the room last month, it got weird. Sometimes while it was running, it would just shut off and the button wouldn't turn it back on. But if you bumped it with your hand, it would come back on. Then that stopped working. But if you tilted the entire case to the side, it would come back on and stay on. So now we've got a book under one side to make sure it stays on. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. I'm sorry. And so far it's been working, but it's so stupid and I hate it. What the hell is wrong with this thing and how do we fix it? Thank you in advance, Terrence and Cheryl.
I mean, honestly, that feels like a power connection has come slightly loose.
Well, it's I'm not sure if it's a power connection or my thinking is it's the button. It's the power button because, and here's why I think it is. Because I think the power button, if it makes a connection, it sends a signal to tell the computer to turn itself off. So I think what's happening is it's gotten stuck. That's why when they were bumping it with their hand, like it would shut off on its own. I think it was already having problems. When they bumped it, it would short again and then the computer would come back on. And now they have it off to the side. So I think there might be a short in that wire that goes to the motherboard. That's one possibility. Another possibility, it could be a power cable. It could be like the 24 pin or maybe even the 8 pin for the CPU.
The first thing I would do is power it off,
right?
Disconnect the power cable and check how securely connected the power from the power supply is to the motherboard. Just, check every connection, make sure they're secure. Because honestly, when you're moving stuff around, it is possible for something that was a dodgy, but on the good side of dodgy connection to go to the bad side of dodgy connection and just intermittently go, no.
Yeah, something.
Now,
go ahead.
What you don't say here is how abruptly it turns off. I would think if it was a power button counting as a press, it would go, you'd get the Windows shutting down message, which is
that's true. Yeah.
If it's turning off abruptly, that tells me it's more of a power connection.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah. Because if it was triggering the power button, that's an electronic signal. That's not a short. That's the signal telling the computer it's time to shut down. That's not turning its. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. So yeah, I would check every connection on that power supply and make sure everything is plugged in securely. Also, go through and make sure there's nothing is under any stress or strain in there.
Yeah.
Because,
and the other thing I would check, you say you rearrange the room.
Yeah.
I'm going to suggest something else. When you rearrange a room, generally you've moved this now to a different power outlet. Move it back to the old power outlet. If you got to use an extension cord, use an extension cord. And if it goes back to working normal without any of this checking, then it's the outlet. Something's wrong at that outlet.
Or maybe if you've got a surge protector on it, same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah.
I mean, you absolutely should have a surge protector between the outlet and your computer.
Yeah. But yeah, this it didn't happen until you started moving stuff around. That's So try it in the other outlet.
That's why I'm thinking something not loose.
Yeah. But what I was saying, the strain, just because something is connected securely, if the wires are being pulled on too hard, if there's too much strain on the connection, that can also cause shorting and issues as well.
For example, I had a system this week. People using it in the morning were able to use the HDMI on the remote on the VTC connection to go onto the big screens. Fantastic. People in the afternoon, it wouldn't connect. We pulled the HDMI cable. Oh yeah, it's kinked. It was under a lot of strain. We ran a new HDMI cable. It goes, oh yeah, no, there's your screens. No problem.
Yeah. So try those first. I'm sorry, you got to do what you got to do sometimes. Just imagine that poor computer there with a book jammed under the side, keeping it tilted. Well, yeah, good luck with it. Yeah, it's not, don't worry. As long as you're not unplugging things, you can very carefully go through the inside of your computer and check the connections. Just make sure nothing.
Like I said, unplug from the wall before you're messing around.
Obviously, yeah. But yeah. So.
And if you have a grounding strap, I would utilize it. But
okay, last one here is let's see, double check, see if we got anything else in. don't think we have. This one came from our YouTube comments. This is from Charlazard. I think I'm saying that right. Like Charlemagne, but Charlazard. That's interesting.
I think it's Charles Zard. Just Charlazard.
Charlazard. 5579 on YouTube. Bit of an odd question, but I want to get some input from you guys. I currently have both Prometheus 17 laptop with an i7 10th gen and a 3080 Ti, and a PC with a Ryzen 5600 and a 3060 Ti. X570 motherboard, 32 gigs of RAM. I don't use both of them. Kind of hard to game on two things at once. Which one would you advise I sell? Mind you, the laptop only cost me about $200 as it needed a new battery, RAM, and SSD, and the previous owner didn't want to deal with it. But I also have a Switch, which mainly handles my mobile gaming. Well, first of all, you mentioned it as a i7 10th gen and a 3080 Ti, but the thing about laptops is
those are cut down versions.
Even though they call it an i7, it's not the same as a desktop i7, especially with NVIDIA. They call it a 3080 Ti. It's nowhere near a desktop 3080 Ti. They run much lower power levels because they have to, because they're on battery. And they have they're much less silicon, like Mike says, they are cut down. So off the bat, I would say those two systems, given that one of them is a laptop, and I would say those two systems are very close in performance. Just gauging by a 3060 Ti versus a mobile 3080 Ti, I think they're pretty close. Maybe not so close, but in any event, if you need to get rid of one, get rid of the laptop. And I'll tell you why.
So I looked up this laptop, by the way.
Yeah.
It is a special brand of gaming laptop.
Right.
It has an external water cooling option.
Yeah, I've seen some of those. They're crazy. Which, that's nice, but it's also kind of ridiculous. But I would, of the two, if it were me, I would let the laptop go. And the reason why is, even though AMD has moved on from the AM4 socket, they're still supporting the AM4 socket. There's new AM4 processors coming out for it soon. Did you see this, Mike?
No, I did not.
The 5900 XT and the 5800 XT. And to make things even more confusing, the 5900 XT is a 16-core processor, not a 12-core processor. These are coming out within the next year. So there are going to be two more brand new AM4 processors.
Well, I can't argue with that. That's good for people who haven't upgraded to the AM5 socket. That's fine.
I mean, there is there's an upper limit for performance you can get out of AM4, but that's a pretty high upper limit. Putting one of the you have room to upgrade. Specifically, one of the X3D CPUs would give you a good level to upgrade to from the 5600. And mainly your big place to upgrade is your graphics card, because this can handle a faster graphics card. Obviously, you could get NVIDIA 40 series, 50 series coming soon as well. Or you can get AMD Radeon 6000, 7000, 8000 coming, depending on what you want to do and price-wise and whatnot. But you have a lot more flexibility with the desktop. And the very fact you say you have the Switch that handles mobile gaming, that means you already have a better alternative. So, yeah, for all told, pardon me, hiccups. All told, I would get rid of the laptop. I think you might even want to make a profit on that, honestly.
Since you replaced the parts, I would. You might be able to get more than the 200 plus the parts you put out of it, because it is a pretty slick laptop.
Yeah. I always prefer a desktop for gaming, simply because it's going to be not just the most powerful, but the most cost-effective solution. Laptops are always more expensive but less powerful. It's the sacrifice you make to get the portability and keep the power on the battery life. You're never going to. It's always more expensive and it's always slower. With a desktop, you don't have to worry about a battery. You're going straight from the wall. So you can either go all out and get the fastest, biggest, brightest stuff, or you can get cheaper stuff, but can go faster than whatever the laptop can pull off. Even that 3060 Ti, I think, versus a mobile 3080 Ti, I would say that I haven't looked what the comparison are, but just even that. And coming soon, we're going to have a new generation of graphics cards, which means the current generation of cards are going to go on sale, maybe. And there's going to be some used ones out there as well. So that's good room to upgrade. And just the X3D CPU, that'll hold you any of them. The 5600 X3D, the 5800 X3D, the 5700 X3D, take your pick. There are several of them for AM4.
Yeah, I just ran it past user benchmark, by the way. The 3080 Ti laptop versus the 3060 Ti. 3% difference.
That's what I thought. That's about what I thought. They probably have about the same cores, or they might the laptop one might have more cores, but it's running with less power. So to compensate for it. Laptops, unless you're willing to spend enough that you could buy a car, laptops are not going to be as competitive with, even then.
I'd rather have a car.
I'd rather have a car too. So yeah, it's even just, doesn't the Switch these days, because someone correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't the Switch support stuff like mobile remote desktop, or is that just something that's not that would only be on like a Steam Deck or something? Because I thought the Switch runs apps now, doesn't it? Doesn't it have like the ability, like the NVIDIA Shield stuff, or it's just not an option? Anyone who has a a Switch and knows about this stuff, please pipe up. Sarah has one, but I don't know a damn thing about it. And she typically just plays regular Nintendo games. She doesn't mess with the remote desktop stuff. Because the remote gaming is kind of where one of those things that they keep hyping for mobile gaming, and I'm not sure how well it's worked out overall, but you know. Okay, let's see. Anything else come in, or is this everything for tonight? I think that's everything for tonight. So all right, folks, we will be back next Saturday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. If you have tech questions for me and Mike, you can send those to requests@radio.air.com. We'll do our best to answer them, just like we just did. In the meanwhile, for Mike and myself, we'll see you next time. Good night, everyone. All right, you have a good rest of your weekend, dude.
You too, man.